Everyone doing this? Here's your boy. I'm going back to basics on a few things. This is a cryptid piece. It's been too long since I've done one of these. This is based on, how can I say this? This is what this channel is based on. Let's get to it. This is about the Solomon Island Giants. Yeah, something very interesting I didn't even know about until I did some recent reading on them. These creatures were sighted by the Japanese and also the Americans, I believe, because there was some serious fighting during World War II in this East Pacific, if I remember right. Now, don't quote me on this. Me and geography ain't friends, if you know what I'm talking about. But either way, on these islands, it was the Battle of Guadalcanal is what it was called. I want to say it was between 42 and 45. Either way, the Japanese and the Americans were killing each other left and right over there. Excuse me. And the Japanese, there's records of these guys seeing these monsters. And what I mean by monsters is something very interesting. They were supposedly large primate-like creatures, like almost like apes, like Bigfoot possibly, and definitely, like I said, massive. These creatures even supposedly had kidnapped a woman. I'm not sure of all the details, but I do know it's documented. But supposedly this woman, she'd been kidnapped by these giants, right? In these, this is all, the Solomon Islands are jungle. This is all like wetland jungle. So you can imagine the kind of situation that you'd be in. These things probably can hide quite easily. If they're anything like Bigfoot, they can hide very well. But either way, this poor woman, supposedly, she had been captured and used as breeding stock. She was held captive for 25 years. And when she was found, she was irreversibly crazy. I mean, think about it. If you're used as something like that for monsters, I'm pretty sure you go crazy too. I'm just saying. And supposedly this poor woman, she had a child. It lived till it was about 5 years old and then it was killed. But regardless, something like that is horrifying. I mean, I can't even imagine. But it brings up something which it may be uncomfortable for some people, but so be it. There are some serious records of creatures like Bigfoot capturing people and taking them to a settlement. They seem to really have a thing for women, too, let me tell you. And, of course, I actually, in my story, The Werewolf Hunter, Chapter 2, The Tragedy of Oak Run, if I remember right, there was definitely that theme. But that, of course, was more a bit of my imagination and fantasy. At the same time, I based some of that on possible facts, let me tell you. And to be honest with you, that is it's nefarious. Very nefarious. And let me tell you right now, do I think these creatures could be fallen? There's no doubt about that in my mind, the possibility. Now, the thing is, many times people think, it's a Nephilim or fallen being too quickly. Yet at the same time, you got to think about just the motive behind something like that. Just something to really think about, man. Do I think these creatures could possibly exist? No doubt in my mind. Now, I'm just saying, something like this would have no qualms hiding in jungle. Now, they're supposed to be very big. I mean, Bigfoot is good size. These things supposedly are even bigger. There's been some anywhere from like 10 foot tall to 20 described. That's big. Let me tell you, that's huge. And of course, they're supposedly, their descriptions actually are, which is interesting. Many times with Bigfoot, you have all kinds of variations. But these things are a little different. They literally have their eyes seem to be almost like red, and they're bulging, you know what I'm saying? And they literally have almost like two sets of eyebrows, which is horrifying to think about. And of course, they're big. Massive, hairy. Their hair colors are red, black, brown. And they're called the orang something. And I'm thinking to myself, that right there The orangutan speaks for itself. But why is it that some of these creatures seem to have such a thing for kidnapping females, man? There's also been stories of kidnapping men, too. There was actually a story, this was not of the Solomon Island giants. I think this is more Sasquatch. But it's something to really think about. There was a case, supposedly, of a guy. He had been kidnapped by a female Bigfoot. And she literally licked his palms to the point where they were raw. The same thing with his feet. And she took him over and over. Not good, let me tell you. And the people that found him, he died shortly after. And he was also driven insane. So you really have to take consideration what kind of evil is behind this. I'm going to be honest with you. If it's a natural, hominoid or anything like that, that ain't much better. Because, hell, people don't really understand just how vicious primates can be. Especially orangutans, they can be aggressive. And there's territorial fights usually between the males. But even that it pales in comparison to, let's say, the chimpanzee. Vicious. I mean, I'm just saying, those apes are mean. I mean, there's stories, factual accounts after account after account. I mean, you look on the internet about it. It's littered with all kinds of stuff they do to each other, especially the males. I mean, when they go to war, it's horrifying. And something else to think about when it comes to chimps. They eat one of their favorite diets when it comes to eating meats. And of course, any type of omnivore is going to need protein. Yeah, they eat ants, they eat insects, small animals they can get their mitts on, but they love to eat monkeys. Something to think about. That's my point. If they're anything like that, these giants, then that ain't much of a comfort, if you know what I'm talking about. The thing is, supposedly these creatures also they've built things, they've done some very impressive things in the past. At least that's what the people, the locals seem to say. And there was a time they were even worshipped as gods. And that right there leads me to believe that these things are more in the fallen variety. Definitely old world and definitely not cute. And yes, there have been stories of them eating people. So there you go. But regardless, of course, the war was over. It's been over. But even now, there's supposed sightings of these things. And let me tell you, the appearance of these creatures is pretty much kept the same. You know what I'm saying? It's not like I said, with Bigfoot and other things, that many times, depending on the region, their appearances vary. These creatures definitely, I don't know. But another thing to think about when it comes to things looking the same like that, like there's not much variation, of course, except for color and size. So that makes me think there's a lot of inbreeding going on. Good friend of mine, he described the Bigfoot he saw as something that looked almost like it had Down syndrome. You know what I'm saying? And that's scary in itself. I think there's a lot of inbreeding that's going on with these hominoids. And the Solomon Island giants seem to really be an example of that, if you know what I'm saying. And that may be why they take, women and stuff like that to try to keep their, it would rather be a hat. My point is, maybe they'd rather have a half-breed set of children than something that's inbred, and definitely not a good thing. Regardless, it's horrible. But it's something to really consider when you're dealing with creatures like this that definitely, I believe, exist, and there's no doubt about that in my mind. I'm just going to leave it at that. You know what I'm saying? If you want to do more research, I encourage you to. Like I said, this is simply a short video on about what I read and took a look at. But either way, you go ahead and figure out what it is you think they might be, and do your own research, like I said. Either way, you guys be blessed and you be safe.